My name is Alex, and if you'd asked me 6 months ago what I was most proud of, I would have said my marriage without hesitation. Kate and I had been together for 10 years, a full decade. I was 23 when we met, both of us fresh out of college, working unpaid internships and eating boxed mac and cheese like it was gourmet. We grew together, built something. We were the couple that made it past the honeymoon phase, past the roommate phase, through job losses and cross-country moves. I won't say it was perfect, no real relationship ever is, but it was real. It had weight. We laughed a lot. That's what I always came back to. Even when we argued, there was this underlying layer of understanding. Like we were on the same team no matter what. But sometimes, the cracks show in ways you don't immediately recognize. They don't start with shouting or cheating or slam doors. Sometimes they start with silence, or a missed goodnight kiss, or a changed phone lock screen you're not supposed to notice. Still, when our 10th anniversary rolled around, I wasn't worried. I was excited. I wanted to do something special, something beyond the usual dinner and flowers routine. I wanted to remind her that we hadn't just survived 10 years together. We'd earned it. I found this small private winery in Sonoma, not the touristy kind, but a members-only place I heard about through a friend in Napa. Rustic stone walls, fireplaces lit year-round, soft live jazz most nights. I called a month in advance to book a private table near the hearth. Told the staff it was for our anniversary. They promised they'd make it memorable. I even bought her a necklace, a simple gold chain with a small sapphire pendant. Not flashy, just elegant. Something that said, "I still see you." I left it in a small velvet box at the center of the table, under the candlelight, time to be revealed with dessert. The night arrived. I got there 15 minutes early, nerves buzzing. I checked everything twice. The reservation, the lighting, the wine selection. I even adjusted the chair she'd be sitting in so it had the best view of the fireplace. Then I waited. 7 p.m. came and went. I wasn't immediately worried. Kate could be late, traffic, last-minute makeup touch-up, parking. No big deal. I ordered sparkling water and looked at the menu again just to stay busy. 7:15. Still no text. I checked my phone. Nothing. That familiar knot of unease started forming in my chest. The one you get when your instincts whisper things you don't want to hear. I looked out the tall windows by the entrance, scanning the dim parking lot. 7:23. My phone buzzed. A simple message. "Here. Be right in." I stood to greet her. I remember brushing imaginary lint off my jacket, smoothing down my shirt collar. Nervous, like a kid about to ask someone to prom. Which is funny, considering we shared a mortgage and tax returns. And then I saw her. She walked in through the double glass doors, lit by the golden hue of the wine cellar lamps. She looked stunning, like always, in a long dark green dress I hadn't seen before. It hugged her figure in a way that felt intentional. Her makeup was done in soft tones, the kind she used for formal events, not casual dinners. But she wasn't alone. A man walked in beside her. Tall, athletic build, neatly styled hair, blazer over a white button-down, no tie. He looked like someone from a catalog. Clean, confident, just casual enough to say I belong anywhere. His hand was on her waist. Not loosely, comfortably. His fingers curved around her hip like they'd done it before. And Kate didn't flinch. She didn't even seem surprised to see me standing there. She smiled like we were all old friends. "Alex," she said, walking toward me. "This is Trevor from work." He was in the area and I figured, why not? I told him to join us. Trevor extended a hand. "Hey man, I've heard a lot about you." His grip was firm. His smile, too familiar, and somehow too calm. I blinked. I didn't know what to say. In my head, I was still trying to process what I was seeing. I glanced at Kate. Was this some kind of misunderstanding? A setup? But she was already turning toward the host, asking about our table. We were seated moments later. The table I had reserved, the one by the fireplace, now had a third chair brought in. I sat down slowly, trying to keep my composure. I told myself not to overreact. Trevor sat beside Kate, not across, beside. close enough that their knees could touch if they weren't careful. He leaned in when he spoke, like he wanted her to hear only him, and she laughed. Not the polite kind of laugh you give someone in a professional setting. It was free, too loud, too relaxed, the kind of laugh I hadn't seen from her in months. And maybe that's what stung the most. I tried to stay engaged. I made small talk, asked him about his job, some finance-adjacent tech startup. He answered with buzzwords and a strange sort of smug humility. Everything he said felt like it had a price tag on it. Midway through the main course, he leaned over and whispered something into Kate's ear. Her eyes widened, and she burst out laughing. That same laugh. She touched his arm as she did it. I stared at my plate. I didn't taste anything I ate, just chewed and swallowed. My wine sat untouched. And then came the moment. Dessert arrived. The staff brought out the velvet box just like I'd asked. The candlelight hit it perfectly. I looked over at Kate, but she was already glancing at Trevor, mid-smile, mid-story. She barely noticed the box. Just muttered, "Oh wow, you didn't have to," like I'd brought home flowers from the grocery store. Not something I'd chosen weeks ago. I sat in silence. And then I made the mistake of asking, "Are you too close?" Kate blinked. "What? Don't be weird." "I'm just asking." Trevor smirked. "We work long hours. You get to know people." And then Kate scoffed. Actually scoffed. She looked at me like I was a jealous teenager. "Alex," she said, rolling her eyes. "It was just a friendly kiss on the cheek. You always overreact." That was it. That was the sentence. No apology. No explanation. Just that casual dismissal, like my discomfort was the real offense. A decade of trust, of memories, of holidays, sick days, quiet mornings. All of it reduced to me being dramatic. I didn't say anything for the rest of the night. Not when Trevor made another joke. Not when Kate said we should head out. I just nodded, paid the bill. And on the drive home, I didn't even ask why she'd brought him. Because I already knew. She didn't see it as betrayal. Not yet. But I had felt the shift. And once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. After that night at the winery, everything looked different. Not just Kate. Not just Trevor. But everything. The moment we got home, she walked straight into the bathroom and shut the door. No conversation. No acknowledgement of how the evening unraveled. I sat in the living room, staring at the half-wrapped velvet box still in my jacket pocket. She hadn't even opened it. I used to think the worst kind of betrayal was sudden, like something loud, messy, impossible to miss. But what hit me that night wasn't loud at all. It was quiet, cold, calculated, and it made me look backward. Because once that seed of doubt is planted, every memory becomes potential evidence. I started remembering the little things, the moments I had brushed off as nothing, moments I had told myself not to read into. But now they felt like red flags I had trained myself to ignore. There was the night, maybe 4 months earlier, when Kate came home late from work. She was usually tired after long days, but that evening she seemed energized, not just in a good mood, giddy. Her cheeks were flushed. She walked in humming, tossed her coat on the couch, and immediately went to pour herself a glass of wine. I'd asked how her day was. She said, "Exhausting," but smiled as she said it. At the time, I smiled back. I didn't notice that she didn't smell like the office, that she wore a new perfume I'd never smelled before. Something floral, expensive. She told me it was a free sample. I believed her. Then there were the late nights. Not just 1 or 2, they became a pattern. First, it made sense. She was taking on more responsibilities at work. New clients, bigger deadlines. But then I started noticing things that didn't add up. One night, she came home and said her boss had taken the team out for drinks to celebrate landing a big account. She talked about the bar like it was casual, no big deal. But when I asked who was there, she hesitated. Just for a second. Then she rattled off a list of names I barely recognized. I nodded, pretending to know them. But something felt off. Later that night, while brushing my teeth, I walked past her phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a message preview. It was just a name, Trevor, and a half-visible line. That last round was dangerous, lol. When I asked about it, she shrugged. We were all being stupid. He just makes dumb jokes. Again, I let it go. But after the winery night, when she dismissed my feelings with that one phrase, I stopped letting things go. The memories came back sharper now. There was that time we went to visit her parents, and she spent the whole 3-hour drive texting. I asked her who she was talking to, and she said, Madison. She's going through a breakup. But now I remembered her typing, pausing, smiling, typing again. Long messages, long pauses. That wasn't how she talked to Madison. Or the time she changed her phone's lock screen. It used to be a picture of us at a lake in Big Sur. A candid sh*t, her laughing while I splashed her. One day it was gone, replaced by some artsy black and white image with a quote. Freedom is within. I remember staring at it for longer than I probably should have, but I didn't say anything, because what would I have said? That I felt replaced by a wallpaper? The worst part wasn't any one event. It was the slow erosion of connection. Suddenly I was parking wrong. Suddenly I wasn't fun anymore. She started pointing out small things about me that had never been issues before. I left cabinet doors open. I forgot to buy oat milk. I told the same jokes. At first, I thought she was stressed. I offered to cook more, clean more, even suggested we take a weekend trip. She agreed, then canceled. Said she was too overwhelmed. And that phrase kept echoing in my head. You always overreact. Like my feelings were a problem. Like her pulling away wasn't the issue. One night, I walked into the kitchen while she was typing on her laptop. I kissed her cheek, like always, and she flinched, just a little, then quickly closed her laptop. Not minimized, closed. No saving, no Command S. Just slam and switch. She looked up with a tight smile. You startled me. I asked what she was working on. Just something for the Q3 meeting, she said. But her screen had been dark. I remembered seeing chat bubbles, the distinct green and white layout of a messaging app. Another time, I caught her FaceTiming someone in the guest room. When I knocked, she ended the call before answering. She said it was her friend Jenna, but Jenna never used FaceTime. She always called. I knew that because I was friends with Jenna too. The real shift, though, happened in the bedroom. We used to cuddle every night, even when we fought. It was our unspoken rule. No matter what, we ended the day in each other's arms. But lately, she'd roll over and face the wall. I'd reach out and she'd mumble something about being too hot or too tired. Once or twice, fine. But it became a routine. Like her body built a wall between us each night. And when I try to talk to her about it, she'd say things like, You're imagining problems that don't exist. I just need space. Why are you being so needy lately? I started sleeping with one ear open, listening to the soft buzz of notifications when her phone lit up past midnight. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering who she was talking to. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that I was paranoid, that I was projecting. But deep down, I wasn't guessing. I was recognizing, because she didn't just drift away from me. She had to make me smaller to justify it. She had to criticize me more, find fault in everything, chip away at our shared history, so she could let herself believe it was already broken before she ever crossed a line. I remember one afternoon, I asked if she wanted to go for a hike, something we used to do all the time. She frowned. You always want to do boring stuff, she said. That hit me, because our first date had been a hike. She told me it was her perfect afternoon. I hadn't changed. She had. But instead of owning it, she needed to rewrite the past. She needed me to be dull, controlling, insecure, so her slow betrayal felt like liberation instead of what it actually was. And here's the cruelest part. It worked. I started questioning myself. Was I boring? Was I jealous? Was I holding her back? That night after the winery, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, staring at our fridge, still covered in magnets from places we'd been. Rome, Banff, Maui. A postcard from Paris she sent me during a business trip. I used to think those were memories. Now they looked like evidence of a life that had already been edited. By morning, I knew Whatever I thought we had, whatever I thought we were building, wasn't mutual anymore. Kate was slipping away. No, Kate had already slipped. I was just finally noticing the silence she left behind. And I was starting to wonder if I ever really knew her at all. A week passed after the winery night, and we barely spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, but because every sentence felt like it would open something neither of us wanted to face. Kate moved around the house like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. Polite, distant, careful. She left earlier in the mornings and came back later than usual. When I asked where she'd been, she answered without detail, like she was reading from a script. I stopped asking. One evening, while she was out, I decided to clean the hall closet. It was one of those tasks that looks productive but is really just an excuse to keep your hands busy when your head won't shut up. Old jackets, a broken umbrella, half-empty boxes from our last move. And then I saw it. The tablet. An old one. We used to share it years ago, mostly for travel and streaming. At some point, we both stopped using it, and it ended up buried under winter scarves and a pair of hiking boots. I almost put it back without thinking. Almost. But something stopped me. I charged it, expecting nothing. Just old photos, maybe some outdated apps. When it powered on, I realized it was still linked to Kate's cloud account. No password prompt. No extra verification. Just access. My chest tightened. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I told myself this was about clarity, not control. But the truth was simpler. I needed confirmation one way or another, because living in uncertainty was eating me alive. I opened the photo app first. Years of images loaded in neat rows. Birthdays, vacations, food pictures. Then I saw an album I didn't recognize. San Diego. Kate had gone there 3 months earlier for what she called a 2-day conference. I remembered because she came back unusually relaxed, tanned, and distant. She told me the hotel was boring, that the event was forgettable. I tapped the album. The first few photos looked innocent enough. A hotel balcony, a coffee cup near the ocean, a sunset *T. Then I swiped again. There she was, wearing a blue dress I recognized instantly. She told me she was saving it for a special occasion. Trevor stood beside her. His hand rested on her thigh. Not hidden. Not accidental. They were sitting close. Too close. My hand started shaking, but I kept scrolling. Different angles. Different moments. A mirror selfie where his reflection appeared behind her, smiling. Another photo taken at night. City lights behind them. Her head resting lightly on his shoulder. But it wasn't the images that broke me. It was the caption under the last photo. What's real doesn't need explanation. I stared at those words for a long time. They felt deliberate, confident, like a line drawn in ink. She hadn't tried to hide it, because she didn't think she was doing anything wrong. Or maybe because, in her mind, I no longer existed in that story. I sat there for a long time, the tablet resting on my knees, the house silent around me. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I felt hollow, like something essential had been removed without anesthesia. I checked messages next. I didn't read everything. I didn't need to. A few timestamps, a few phrases were enough. Inside jokes. Late-night replies. References to moments I wasn't part of. And through it all, one pattern stayed consistent. No guilt. No hesitation. No acknowledgement that I was being erased in real time. When Kate came home later that night, I didn't confront her. I watched her move through the kitchen, hum softly, scroll through her phone. I wondered how long she'd been living 2 lives and how easy it had been to step between them. That night, I slept on the couch. By morning, my decision was already made. I packed a bag. Not everything. Just enough. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop. I left the tablet on the kitchen table, face down. When Kate woke up and saw me by the door, she looked confused. "Where are you going?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I just said, "I know." Her face changed. Not to shock. Not to regret. To annoyance. "You're being dramatic," she said. "You don't understand the context." That was when I realized the truth wasn't just too big to hide. It was too big for her to admit. I walked out without another word, the door closing behind 10 years of certainty, and for the first time since the winery, the silence felt honest. I drove without a destination, letting the highway decide for me. Every mile put physical distance between me and the version of myself that still believed in explanations. I replayed conversations, looking for the exact moment when honesty stopped being an option for her. Maybe it was San Diego. Maybe it was earlier. Maybe it was when she realized I would always be the safe choice, not the exciting one. At a rest stop, I sat in the car and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked older, tired, like someone who had been negotiating with reality for too long. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just accepted that the marriage I thought I was protecting had already ended somewhere else, without me. When my phone buzzed, I ignored it. I knew what would be there. Questions framed as concern. Statements framed as misunderstandings. None of it mattered anymore. Truth doesn't need explanation. She had said it herself. By the time the sun dipped low and painted the road orange, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not relief, not peace, but clarity. And clarity, I realized, was enough to keep moving forward even when everything behind you had collapsed. The day after I left, I checked into a small motel near the coast. Nothing fancy, just 4 walls, a stiff mattress, and a window that overlooked a gas station. But for the first time in months, I could hear myself think. No tension clinging to the walls. No double meanings in every silence. Just the dull hum of the ice machine outside and the occasional seagull screaming into the wind. I thought she'd need a day or two to realize I was serious. Instead, she called less than 4 hours later. "Alex, come on. You're being dramatic." That was the first thing she said. Not "where are you?" or "can we talk?" Just that same tone she'd used at the winery. Like the problem wasn't what she'd done. It was how I felt about it. "I found the pictures," I said. Silence. Then a sharp sigh. "So you went through my stuff?" Unbelievable. That became her strategy, flip the script. Turn the spotlight on me. Paint me as the overreactor, the invader of privacy, the husband who wasn't supportive enough. The next call came that night. "You know I didn't do anything with him, right? We're just close friends. You imagined everything." I didn't answer. I hung up. But it didn't stop there. Texts started rolling in. Half apologies. Half accusations. Muddled declarations of love followed by justifications for behavior I could no longer ignore. One of them read, "I just needed something for myself. You wouldn't understand." That one stuck with me. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because it was the clearest admission she'd given. She'd made a choice. Not by accident. Not in a moment of weakness. Repeatedly. Willingly. And I was done pretending otherwise. A few days later, the messages changed tone. "Let's talk like adults. You're making this worse than it is. People drift, it doesn't mean someone's to blame." Funny how quickly she moved from denial to negotiation. No ownership. Just this vague narrative where everyone shares a little blame, and no one has to be the bad guy. Except she was making sure I was the bad guy. It started with our mutual friends. Matt, our neighbor, suddenly stopped texting me. Lisa, who once came to our house every month for game night, now responded to my messages with one-word replies. And then one day, an old friend of mine, Sarah, called and said quietly, "Kate's been saying some things, Alex." "What things?" I asked. "She told people you were distant, that you checked out of the marriage years ago, that she felt neglected, invisible." I didn't even know how to respond. I felt like I was listening to a stranger's biography. Kate wasn't just trying to save face. She was rewriting history. She hadn't just crossed a line. She was moving the line entirely, one conversation at a time. Every time someone asked what happened, she had a script ready. Calm, sympathetic, practiced. "He's a good guy, but he just stopped trying." We stopped being partners. I felt like a ghost in my own home. I never meant for anything to happen. I just wanted to feel alive again. Alive. That word again. I realized Kate needed to believe I had failed her. She needed that version of the story because if I hadn't, then she was just a woman who betrayed someone who loved her. And that was too ugly a truth to live with. So she painted me cold, painted herself trapped. She didn't just cheat. She narrated a version where I drove her to it. And the worst part? Some people believed her. Because I'm quiet. I don't do drama. I don't chase people down to defend myself in group chats or spin my own version of events. Kate knew that. She knew I'd disappear quietly. Knew I wouldn't fight dirty. So she nized my silence. And made sure if people ever had to choose between us, they'd see her as the woman who finally chose freedom. Not the one who tore down the home she built with her own hands. But freedom built on lies is still a cage. She just hadn't realized it yet. I didn't respond to any of it. Not the calls. Not the texts. Not the soft mutual acquaintances who tiptoed into my inbox with, "Hey man, just checking in." I wasn't going to explain myself to people who had already decided I was the problem. Let them believe what they want. But late one night, alone in that motel, I pulled out an old photo of us. Print, not digital. From a trip to Maine back when everything still felt real. We were on a cliffside, wind in our faces, her head on my shoulder. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it in half. And I let it go. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. But I was done being the villain in a story I didn't write. She wanted a new narrative. She got it. But I was stepping out of the pages. I thought I was done. I thought the worst of it was behind me. The pictures, the lies, the sudden isolation as people picked sides in a war I hadn't signed up for. I had accepted the quiet, the loneliness, the awkward smiles from people who weren't sure whether to say I'm sorry or just pretend nothing had happened. And then I got the message. It came through an anonymous Instagram account. No profile picture, no posts. Just a DM request that read, "If you're Kate's husband, or were, you should know something. I'm Trevor's ex." At first, I assumed it was a prank, or someone trying to stir the pot. I've been so careful to keep this whole thing off social media. I didn't rant. I didn't post cryptic quotes or deleted selfies. I didn't even update my relationship status. So how did she find me? Still, I accepted the message. Her name was Madison. That's all she gave me at first. She said she dated Trevor for just over a year, ending things about 6 months before he showed up at that winery with Kate. They weren't co-workers. They weren't casual. Madison used words like serious and in love. And then she said something that stopped me cold. "He has a pattern." I asked what she meant. "He finds women who are in relationships. Not always married, but committed. He gets in close emotionally first. He convinces them their partner doesn't see them, that they deserve better, that he sees their potential. Then, once they're hooked, he ghosts, or he moves on to the next." I stared at her words for a long time. She wasn't venting. She was warning me. "He's charming," she wrote. "He knows how to read people. He learns what they're missing, then becomes it." For a while anyway. I asked why she was telling me this. Madison replied, "Because I watched your wife post a picture of him on her story. Same caption he used with me, word for word." I felt sick. "What was the caption?" I asked. She sent a **T. There it was. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." She followed up with another. This one was a private message, Trevor texting someone else. Madison had blurred the name, but the message was crystal clear. "She's temporary too. Just wait. Once the money comes in, I'm gone." I didn't understand. "What money?" I typed. That's when Madison told me about the last woman before her. A woman named Claire, who worked in legal consulting. Trevor had gotten involved with her under the pretense of building a startup. Promised her equity. Used her contacts. And when things were secure, when she'd helped him land a small funding round, he vanished. Left her with nothing but a mess of questions and a broken lease. Madison warned me, "If he's targeting your wife, he's probably after more than just attention." I didn't want to believe it. Not because I thought Kate was innocent, but because it meant the betrayal was even deeper. That while I was blaming her for falling out of love, Someone else had been engineering the fall. I went for a walk. Needed air. A long stretch of sand and saltwater sat just 2 blocks from the motel. I walked until the signal dropped, until the wind drowned out my thoughts. When I got back, I messaged Madison again. Did he ever mention a guy named Chris? Her reply came fast. Yes, that was his co-founder. Total scammer. He does the money stuff. Trevor's the face. I sat there, heart racing, because Kate had mentioned Chris. Months ago. Said he was a clever, funny startup guy Trevor had introduced her to. She said they were working on something exciting, but brushed it off like a casual side project. I thought it was harmless. But now I wondered if that project had anything to do with my company. Kate wasn't involved in my business, at least not officially, but she had access. We used the same devices, shared Wi-Fi, shared documents, and Trevor had been in our house more than once. I suddenly remembered a night I came home from a trip, and she said, "Trevor stopped by to drop something off." I asked what. She said, "Just files." I never saw them. My stomach dropped. "Do you think he's using her?" I asked Madison. Her reply was immediate. "I know he is." I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, retracing every moment from the last 6 months. Every business trip. Every new behavior. Every time Kate had brushed off a question or changed the subject. The pieces clicked together. He saw an opportunity. A woman drifting in her marriage, emotionally vulnerable. A direct line to a family business with valuable data and proprietary planning models. He didn't have to seduce her. Just convince her she was misunderstood, unloved. The rest would unfold naturally. And Kate, she bought it. She bought it completely, because that's what she needed to believe. She needed Trevor to be a soulmate. She needed this new love to feel real, because otherwise, she'd have to face the possibility that she burned down her life for a con artist with good hair and practiced charm. And that would break her. But I wasn't going to let her find out the hard way. Not because I still loved her. Not because I wanted revenge. Because she didn't even know she was a pawn. Because I had spent 10 years protecting our home, and even if the marriage was over, I couldn't sit by while someone used her to burn everything else. So I backed up everything. The screensh *TS. The captions. The texts Madison sent. I started searching for signs of data leaks or file transfers from our shared cloud and local devices. And that's when I found it. A synced audio file, short, under 2 minutes. Accidentally captured by her phone, probably during a Bluetooth sync between her devices. I recognized Trevor's voice immediately. "She thinks I'm just in love," he was saying. "Just don't let her see the transfer report. I'm almost done securing my stake in the project." My hands clenched into fists. There it was. No more guesswork. No more wondering. Trevor wasn't just a distraction. He was a thief. And Kate, whether by choice or by blindness, had helped him into the vault. I confronted the truth in silence. Trevor hadn't just stolen Kate's heart. He'd used her as a key to my business, my trust, my life. I traced his access through our Wi-Fi logs. He'd been inside our network multiple times while I was away. The audio file played in my head like a broken record. Just don't let her see the transfer report. She thought she was in love. But she was being played. And worse, she was helping him. She had handed over our world thinking she was chasing something real, when all she was to him was leverage. For the first time, I didn't feel anger toward her. I felt pity. She wanted freedom. He gave her illusion. I gave her love. She traded it for a fantasy built on manipulation. She wasn't the mastermind. She was the mark. I printed everything, the photos, the messages, the audio, packaged neatly, sent it to her work email with one line. "Truth before it swallows you too." A week later, she showed up at my door. No apology. Just, "You should have protected me." I looked at her and said, "You chose," repeatedly, "and never me." Her face crumbled, but I didn't feel bitter. I felt done. A month later, while photographing a music festival in Oregon, I accidentally captured a girl mid-laugh. She came over, smiling, and said, "Just make sure I look good in it. All right?" And somehow, For the first time in a year I laughed too. Not because I was healed, but because I was finally free.